Meeting for today, September 30th. And let's see, we do detect a quorum with myself present, Councilmember Allen present, Councilmember Benedict present, Councilmember Cap present, Councilmember Gadd present, Councilmember Horton present, Councilmember Coopin present, and Councilmember Parker is present. Where? All right, yes, so we do. You have 8? Okay. All right, we have a presentation, so we will go on and get started without delay. I don't see anyone signed up for public comment for today. So without objection, we will hear the presentation from Mr. Greg Claxton with the Planning Department staff to talk about capital improvements, and then we'll get into the agenda. So with that, counts the planning table.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, council members. Greg Claxton with Nashville Planning. I'm here to reintroduce the capital improvements budget for the council request cycle this year. As a reminder, the capital improvements budget functions that any capital improvement that Metro makes must be included in the CIB. Capital improvement is any building, structure, work, or improvement with an average life of 10 years or more and a cost greater than $50,000. While improvements that Metro make have to be included in the CIB, being in the CIB does not guarantee funding. That is, the CIB doesn't allocate funding for projects. Additionally, it includes 6 years of projects, but because it's readopted every year, it's only binding on the first year. Typically, projects that are, once they're in the CIB, they need some allocation of funding. Most projects of interest are funded through general obligation bonds through a capital spending plan. But there are other sources of funding, such as revenue bonds, 4% funds, enterprise funds, or operating budget from a department, or federal or state funding. The annual cycle for developing the CIB starts in October, with October through January for this cycle for council requests. Then departments submit their requests in January and February. We pull the CIB together, the document, and bring it to Planning Commission for a vote to recommend to the mayor. The mayor submits his draft by May of every year, and then council votes to adopt the CIB in June. The CIB is structured into 4 parts: an introduction. Section 1 and 2 are a list of projects by their funding tax district. And then most of the CIB is Section 3, which has details on projects. This is an example of a typical page in the CIB for those project details, where you have a project ID highlighted in red, 19DS0004, for constructing sidewalks on Central Pike, a map, a list of funding details, and then also an assessment for how the project aligns with Nashville Next, our general plan. This is an assessment that the planning department does as part of our work. And then further, there's a sort of a core part in the middle of each project where we lay out all of the different views of priority for it, kind of how well it aligns with the general plan for an MPC priority, a department priority, if any, and then a council priority established by this body. Because there's so many different kinds of projects in the CIB, one of the things we try to do is organize them into overarching projects so that you have a sense of kind of where are all of the similar projects grouped together, and how does funding requests across these different categories compare. So this is a comparison of the major programs that we've organized the CIB into. Some of these are sort of single lines, such as Clean Water Nashville, but some of them are grouping together a lot of individual projects, such as MNPS's request for school renovations. Here's an example of how one of those programs show up, where we provide a little bit, very similar detail at the top, but then a larger, more detailed program level map below. And then here's an example of how sub-projects are associated with that larger program, just so that we can organize the CIB and make it, for 1,000 projects, 300 plus pages, make it as easy to navigate as we can. And so now I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail about the council request project. So in the next day or two, council staff will distribute logins for the online database for accessing projects related to your districts. You'll have until, I think the typical rule, unless changed this year, you'll have until October 31st to submit requests for new projects and reviews of current projects. We'll take all of those and distribute them to departments for review, and then we'll get back their comments, compile them together, and then our report is due back to you by December 16th. This will include cost estimates from departments, as well as if there's any context that they have on project feasibility, anything they know about the project, alignment with other programs, that kind of thing. They'll include a little bit of information, and we'll pass that on as well. And then sometime, usually mid to late January, but sometimes February, depending on how the year is going, there's typically a joint meeting of budget and finance and planning, zoning, and historical committees where y'all establish priorities. So the prioritization tool that we're using again this year is an online database called NAC. Like I said, there's two primary tasks you'll do. First is to review current projects associated with your district from the FY25 CIB. You'll take a look and you'll let us know whether you want to keep it, whether it's no longer needed or something else. And then you'll also have the opportunity to add new projects. As a reminder, this is all work towards next year's CIB, so this doesn't change anything in the current year's CIB. This is what the login screen looks like. Council staff will have your passwords, and once logged in, you'll be able to see your projects and make requests for your districts. I do want to note last year I had a number of misspellings, and I apologize for that. We're using from the corrected list this year, so everything should be correct. If you do have a problem, please don't hesitate to reach out. This is an example of what the list of current projects look like. There'll be an area on the left where you see resubmit status. You'll be able to go in, click on that, and identify the status. Not in my district, no longer needed in CIB, or remain in CIB. I know some council members will want to go ahead and mark this is a priority. That's a separate step. So we're just looking for whether it needs to move forward past this phase of things. I've got a note in there that council districts are assigned based on geography. I apologize, that's a holdover from last year. Anything we associated with your project from this process last year will carry forward. Oh, and that's the example of kind of where you mark whether it stays in or is no longer needed. You can also click to review more details that we have on the project. This is an example of kind of what additional details will look like if you want to look at one project in particular. In addition, if there's some further information that you want to convey to us or some update on the project within those project details, you can provide that as well. We do flag some projects if they've got a known issue. Most of these are where the cost is below the $50,000 threshold to be necessary for the CIB. We defer to y'all on whether that should remain, but it is something where it does become like a lot for us to manage, like a lot of extraneous projects in the CIB from year to year. So anything y'all can do to help out and remove projects that don't need to be in there is appreciated. Again, some of those are costs below the $50,000. The project can be implemented without a CIB request. Sometimes there's a more straightforward way to accomplish what you're looking for. Or if the department in the past hasn't been clear or there's some other issue, we'll flag that as a point where maybe we need further information or it's worth sitting down with the department and talking through what the issue is. So our default for these is that it's no longer needed in the CIB. If it is something you'd like to see retained, you'll just need to go in and mark it as retained in CIB. And then last, this is what we're asking for a new project. We're looking for a title. A short statement is best, and then a description where you can provide more context. And that goes in the CIB itself. So something that sort of conveys like what is the project doing, a little bit of detail on start and end points, that kind of thing. And then another section for you to convey what the need is, like what it is that you or your community is looking to accomplish. This gives departments a lot of guidance, especially where some of these may be ambiguous. Road widening versus this intersection needs better crossings or better turn lanes, that kind of thing. And with that, I'm happy to take questions about the CIB or this council request process.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll start with Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that for some capital projects, there is a very official prioritization process that uses a grid and stuff like that. I know MNPS has the physical facilities, and that NDOT has something for roads that may or may not rise to the level of a CIB process, just because each road that may not hit that $50,000. Is there the possibility to get access to those prioritization lists during this process, or even better yet, at any time?
I think it depends on the, I mean, just going off my own knowledge of those different systems. Certainly, like MNPS, as you mentioned, is I mean, that's a formal document that the board adopts. So that will be available once they've adopted it.
But is last year's available now?
I believe so. I'd be happy to.
Could you find the path to get to that? I think that would be very handy to have.
Other systems would be a little bit determinate on kind of the exact system that you're looking for. So for example, I know the library master plan has a prioritization of sort of factors that go into that kind of thing. That's on their website.
Under their master plan?
Yeah. It really depends, I think, a little bit on the department. There's not one single portal where all of that is available.
Right.
And
I mean, I guess
just,
thank you so much. The obvious ones would be parks and libraries and then NDOT and then schools are the big ones that come to my mind. If it'd be possible to give us whatever information you can about what's out there, I think it's helpful to know, everything in my district's in great shape. I shouldn't be, putting attention on that because other people need it more or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I actually have a couple that I'll go on and throw out there. You mentioned that some projects will be flagged based on if they don't meet the $50,000 threshold or other things. Will you also flag projects that have already been funded?
That's in the current process that we've got right now. That's usually information we get back from departments after their re-review in November.
Okay.
And so we do flag projects when we hear back from departments. We just won't have an updated flag for that right now, but we will have that in December.
Okay. And so it's not incumbent upon us to figure that out. We'll figure that out at a later time. Okay. And what happens if in the status part of it, if you don't submit a response to the status, whether it's no longer needed, not in my district, if you just leave that blank, what happens?
I think that practice is varied around that over time. Commonly, those are not resubmitted, but I'll defer to council staff.
Ideally, you wouldn't leave it blank. That would be our
Is
strong
there a
preference.
catch-all where it won't? I know sometimes you can't submit it
So,
if
yeah,
you don't fill out things.
If you submit something, I usually take a quick look at it, and if something's left blank, I send you an email asking why you left it blank. That's usually how it goes. So ideally, nothing would be submitted blank, but yeah, just make sure you always put something in there to say what you want to do with it.
Okay. And go ahead.
Well, and just one follow-up, we always try, sometimes, depending on the timing of everything, we're not able to, but we do seek to follow up with council members to say, this is what we received from you. Does this look like what you intended to send to us? So that's a check as well.
So I guess your deadline is October 31st, so it's a good idea to send it in well ahead of that in case you need to go back and do some redos. So let's not procrastinate. If we can get that, ideally, you all would like to have it by the 15th or at least a week before, so you have time to in case things need to be changed, okay? And my last question has to do with the password. You mentioned that we'll all get an email with the link. Have all the passwords have been changed, so we have to wait on the email in order to get to our list. We won't be able to get there from previous.
No, I don't think we've changed the password.
Oh.
So if you've still got that email from last year, it should still work.
Okay, good to know. All right. Any other questions about the capital improvements budget? This is our annual opportunity to put projects in, capital improvement projects that are $50,000 or more and expense in a request queue, on a wish list, to be considered. It doesn't mean it'll be funded, but it will at least, this is the first stage. Nothing can make it to the capital spending plan unless it's in this capital improvements budget. So this is an opportunity to get things in line for that. Any other questions? All right. Without further questions, thank you so much. And we will move right on into the agenda. All right, I'll go through the consent calendar first, and then if anything needs to pull off, you can let me know before we read the captions. So the consent agenda starts with number 5 on your agenda, RS 2024-747, Toombs, Porterfield, Gamble, Allen. Consent, RS 2024-748 is on consent, 749 is on consent. 751 is on consent, 764 is on consent, 765, 766, 767, 768, 769, 770 are on consent. Do any of those need to be pulled off of consent? Oh, okay, okay. And so I will be taking off number 16 because it is a withdrawn bill, so we need to vote on that one. So 770 is not on consent. Anything else need to be pulled off consent? All right, without further ado, do I need to take my motion first? Okay. All right, we'll read the captions for the consent agenda, starting with number 5, RS 2024-747, Toombs, Porterfield, Gamble, Allen, authorizes the Metropolitan Department of Housing Agency to negotiate and enter into a pilot agreement and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 869 West Trinity Lane, known as Trinity Flats. RS 2024-748, Toombs, Porterfield, Gamble, Allen, authorizes the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency to negotiate and enter into a pilot agreement and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 3720 Clarksville Pike, known as North River. RS 2024-749, Toombs, Porterfield, Gamble, Allen, authorize the Metropolitan Department of Housing Agency to negotiate and enter into a pilot agreement and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 876 West Trinity Lane, known as North View. RS 2024-750, Porterfield, Gamble, Welch, and others, authorizes grants not exceed, that's not on consent. RS 2024-751, Greg Porterfield Gamble approves Amendment 1 to a grant from the Tennessee Historical Commission to Metropolitan Historical Commission to complete an individual National Register of Historic Places nomination for the Elks Lounge, formerly Club Baron, at 2614 Jefferson Street, and an archaeological survey in the Donaldson area. RS 2024-764, Benedict Porterfield Gamble Parker authorizes the Director of Public Property or his designee to exercise an option agreement for the purchase of flood-prone property located at 1225 Ardee Avenue for Metro Water Services. RS 2024-765, Cap Gamble Parker authorizes the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing public water main and to accept new public water main for property located at 1520 C. McKinney Avenue. RS 2024-766, Gamble Parker, amends ordinance number BL 2024-361 to authorize the Metropolitan Government to amend the quantities of type of public sanitary sewer main for 2 properties located at 7350 Nolensville Road and Rocky Fort Road in Williamson County, also known as Village Green Revision 1. RS 2024-767, Coupon Gamble Parker amends ordinance number BO 2023-1801 as amended to authorize the Metropolitan Government to abandon additional linear feet of public sanitary sewer main and public sewer manhole to modify the linear feet of sanitary sewer main to be lowered and to accept additional linear feet of new public sanitary sewer main and new public sanitary sewer manholes for 2 properties located at 30 and 90 Peabody Street, also known as Peabody Ewan Sewer. RS 2024-768, Coop and Gamble Park, amends ordinance BL 2024-243 to authorize the Metropolitan Government to modify the abandonment of existing sewer mains, sewer manholes, and easements, and to accept new public sewer mains, new and rehabilitated sewer manholes and easements for two properties located at 109 9th Avenue North and 900 Broadway, also known as Christ Church Cathedral. RS 2024-769, Toombs Gamble Park, amends ordinance BL 2024-171 to authorize the Metropolitan Government to abandon sanitary sewer mains and sanitary sewer manholes for three properties located at 2111, 2115, and 2151 West Summit Avenue, also known as Summit Review Revision 1 Development. That concludes our consent agenda. May I have a motion on the consent agenda? Thank you. Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Without any discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda passes. Thank you. All right, going back to number 2 on our agenda, Resolution RS 2024-742, Johnston, Gamble, Sepulveda, and others, amends RS 2022-1863 to extend the project term which appropriated $500,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funds from Fund 30216 to Our Place, Nashville, for the provision of affordable housing for adults with developmental disabilities. May I have a motion? Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Without any questions or concerns from the, from council, from the committee, is there anything that the administration would like to add about this particular, the RS 2024-742, American Rescue Plan funding to Our Place for affordable housing? If not, that's fine. Just, okay. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Madam Chair, thank you. This just extends the term for 4 months of
Thank
going on.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you. So this is just an extension of a term of an allocation that we've already made. Any other questions or comments? All right, with no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to RS 2024-744, Johnson, Gamble, Sepulveda, and others, amends Resolution RS 2022-1860 as amended and substitute Resolution RS 2021-1260 to reallocate American Rescue Plan funds to the Strobel Center. May I have a motion? Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually on this whole slate of redirections, which I'm glad we're finding very effective ways to use this American Rescue Plan money to do things that need to be done. Did this go back through the same committee and the same kind of evaluation process so that y'all all gave it the same careful consideration you did the first go-around? Thank you for all your work on that. I know it was a huge amount of time. I don't have any questions on the specific one. I just wanted to ask that in general.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your question. And yes, this did come before the committee. There were some funds that came back to the administration that were allocated for other projects that weren't needed. And so of those funds, we are wanting to redirect or reallocate, I believe it's $300,000 to go towards operating expenses for the Strobel Center. And so it did go back through the committee and got unanimous support in the committee. Is there anything I need to add to that administration table? I'm looking for Mary Jo, and she's not here. She knows everything. Okay, and she won't be here, but hopefully that answers your question. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, without further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on, RS 2024-745, Sepulveda, Gamble, Johnson, and others, amends Resolution RS 2022-1311 to reallocate funds which appropriated $15 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to the Metropolitan Department of Housing Authority to improve infrastructure at Casey Place. May I have a motion? Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? There was a little bit of discussion during the transportation meeting on this. If Dr. Wright or someone is still here of housing, if you could just give us a brief little update on how the funding will be used. Let me see, public table. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
I am Dr. Troy White, the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Development Housing Agency. Thank you for acknowledging us in the back. We were here for the previous committee meeting. This went through the same process through the committee, and discussion was there. So this is a reallocation of dollars to move it from the infrastructure line to production line of units. We would still be using approximately $800,000 to $900,000 to complete 100% drawings of the sewer separation project over at Casey Place. But what this will do is to allow us to continue aggressively building out 5th and Summer, which is the property right across from the Sheriff's Administration building. It would allow us to push that forward and not just obligate, but expend these dollars in the next 6 months. Are there further questions, Madam Chair?
About how many more units will this help
So
us?
this will not generate more units. So when we redesigned 5th and Summer, we added 11 units that would have been on the first floor when I started 3 years ago. We redesigned it so that instead of putting a retail component, we put units because the unit need was higher. So that property will have 107 total units, of which 50% will be for affordable residents, meaning they will have some sort of subsidy from MDHA on them to help cross-subsidize them.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you. Without further discussion, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Which one was that? Okay, moving on to number 8 on your agenda. RS 2024-750, Porterfield, Gamble, Welch, and others authorizes grants not exceeding $11,700,000 from the Barnes Fund for Affordable Housing to certain nonprofits for the express purpose of constructing and rehabilitating affordable or workforce housing. May I have a motion? Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Allen, it looks like Dr. White, if you're still here, I can't see you behind the podium.
I think this may be a Angie Hubbard
Okay, Angie
question.
Hubbard, okay. Oh, and I do see Ms. Hubbard.
So we continue to do amendments to these, acknowledging that 24 months is a really short timeline, and then we lengthen them to 36 and then sometimes to 48 because it just takes that long to get through title clearance and funding and all that kind of stuff. So I guess my question is, are we beginning to consider doing longer, or we just feel like it's better to have a check-in after 24 months and we're going to stick with that?
Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Angie Hubbard, Housing Director, Metro Planning. The 24-month contract period was enacted by council a few years ago. I would really like to consider revisiting that to possibly 36 months. Even if someone had a shovel in the ground today, it's 18 to 24 months to build something, and then you consider pre-development cost with that. But also the Housing Trust Fund Commission has adopted a position of being first money in, which a lot of times banks will lend when you have more equity in the deal. And so having a Barnes Fund grant, then they can go build the rest of their capital stack. So having a 36-month contract period, would love to have that conversation about maybe changing that, but that would take council action. And we do also have monitoring mechanisms, though, to make sure projects are tracking according to their timeline.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Hubbard. Without further discussion, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to number 16 on your agenda, RS 2024-770, Styles Gamble Parker, amends ordinance number BL 2024-439 to authorize the Metropolitan Government to accept additional public water and sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements, to modify the previous acceptance of water main, and to update map and parcel information for two properties located at 1,000 Century Farms Circle and Century Farms Circle unnumbered, also known as Century Farms J Road, Revision 1. The sponsor has submitted a letter to withdraw. So we're voting on a withdrawal. Oh, do we have to vote on that? Yes, we are voting on the withdrawal. Moved and properly seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And on the last item on our agenda, item number 17, BL 2024-491 by Taylor Gamble, amends Title 17 of Metropolitan Code of Laws and the zoning ordinance of the Metropolitan Government by changing from R6A to RS5 zoning for properties located at 1712 A, B, and C Arthur Avenue, approximately 249 feet west of James Street, and located within the detached accessory dwelling unit overlay district, all of which is described herein. May I have a motion? Moved and properly seconded. Councilmember Taylor is here. Would you like to speak on your bill?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to go ahead and ask someone to move for approval. I don't have much to say about it.
All right, moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have my good notes that would remind me why this was disapproved, and I have a memory of Councilmember Taylor explaining why he wanted to go ahead and do it, but if we could hear that again, that'd be helpful.
Okay. All right, we'll start with the planning table, and then we'll go to Councilmember Taylor.
Hi, based on the land use policy, the Planning Commission did recommend that this be disapproved based on a recommendation from planning staff. This property had been rezoned to R6A in the past couple of years, maybe past 2022, Matthew is telling me. So it had been rezoned to the district that it is now. Based on its policy and its location and having an alley, we felt that the existing zoning is the appropriate zoning.
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you. This property started, I think, in 2020 for request to rezone, and it took to 2022 to get rezoned, not because of the tornado, not because of COVID, but because of a lengthy kind of debate within myself and my brain to do it. When that did happen, moving forward, there's been some issues with the property, with upkeep, other things, which then brought the rezoning to the neighbors' attentions. The neighbors were kind of upset that they didn't have as much information as they wanted to or needed to, and weren't necessarily fans of it being rezoned to R6. I think we all hear a lot about the tall and skinnies, and so it's a huge conversation about tall and skinnies kind of prying over the top of them. The neighbors to either side are two small single-story RS5 units. Thanks.
All right. Councilmember Allen, okay. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to let the committee members know that I've served with Councilman Taylor for 5 years now, and he represents his constituents really well. So if he comes to us and tells us that this is what his constituents want, I am absolutely going to be supportive. There's nobody I know on this body that stands for their folks any better than he does. So with that, I will be supportive. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, without further discussion, we're ready for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, I think that concludes our agenda for today. Thank you, Mr. Claxton and the planning staff for the presentation. Look for your emails with the link and update refresher password for the CIB request. And please don't wait until the last minute to get those in, just in case you need, some changes. Councilmember Parker.
Chair, if I may take a moment, I forgot to announce something in my committee. Do you mind
Sure.
if I just make a brief announcement?
Not at all.
Thank you so much. I reminded everyone about Walk to School on Wednesday, October 2nd, but tomorrow, October 1st, at 1:15 p.m. is the Traffic Management Center ribbon cutting hosted by NDOT. This is a really critical program, and we're going to see it slowly build up under status quo investment. And if the Transportation Improvement Plan is approved, we're going to see this system come online very quickly and in a really impactful way. But either way, it's really exciting that we've got this opening. So you can reach out to Matt Purvis if you're able to join us tomorrow at 1:15 at, I believe it's at the Howard campus. So please reach out to Matt Purvis if you can attend. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or announcements? All right, without further ado, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.